So recently, we saw the release of the Garfield movie. A film that, in my eyes at least, not many people really all that hyped to go and see. At least not in the areas of the internet I frequent. I don't think the OG Garfield films, the live action ones, are very well thought of, even if my nostalgic little heart tells me the first one is a classic. And also I think people are just fatigued of Chris Pratt. I see that a lot. Although I do think he's done very well in his voice roles that he's done recently.
So honestly, I saw this guy.
Thought he was really good in Mario, unexpectedly so. And so it didn't seem like people were all that hyped. And if you look on the surface, it does seem like they were right to be ambivalent. I mean, look at the critical reviews. Whew, a massacre. Only a 36% on Rotten Tomatoes as of writing this. They're tearing the film apart.
Dead.
And the thing that really seems to grind the gears of many of these critics is that it isn't especially faithful to the overall source material, so taking it on the face of that, looks like the film is an overall failure. But I think the proof's in the pudding here. The gross and the response by the audience so far seems to be largely positive. It has an 81% approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes and seems to have been very positively received at the box office. A lot of people have gone to see it. It has, so far as of writing this, grossed $103.9 million at the box office in about a week. And that's off a budget of $60 million, so that's very cheap for an animated film. And so it's a massive success already. And you should expect a sequel based off of those analytics alone. And so this is where I entered the scene. I wasn't really all that hyped. I was happy to go to the movies, but in the days leading up to seeing it, I thought, it was one of those times that I wasn't sure if I'd agree with the critics or the wider audiences, so I was apprehensive coming in. And in the end, I actually rather liked it, honestly. Is it the best film I've ever seen? No. Was it a fun diversion? Hell yeah, a very fun diversion. And whilst I don't think it ever really excels and goes above and beyond in any category, at the same time I think it makes a passing grade in every aspect. It's a jack of all trades, master of none sort of vibe. I think maybe the only exception to this is perhaps the voice acting. I found the voice acting to be very good, beyond just passable or only okay. I thought Chris Pratt did a great job as Garfield, Samuel L. Jackson was good as Vic, thought Nicholas Hoult was really good as John, no idea that was him at all until the credits.
Shake your ass, watch yourself, shake your ass, show me what you're working with.
And all of the minor characters, very well voiced. You just can't really say much more on that score. And in a lot of ways, I think the voice acting kind of carried the film sometimes, especially during some of the less funny jokes and skits they do. And so I think it was definitely a game changer for the movie. A bad cast, and the film would have been much worse. But obviously, voice acting is only one part of a film. We also have to look at the visuals and the narrative elements. Sound, visuals, narrative, the big three of your animated movie, and next up we're going with visuals. And this one, looking through some of the reviews, kind of shocked me, because a fair few of them were actually rather harsh on the visuals. Visually flat was referenced, and I wouldn't say I'm some massive connoisseur, and it's obviously not on the level of the top studios or anything like that, but I think it still looks really good. I'm looking at the stills and the trailer right now, thinking back to what I saw on the screen, and it looks good, it looks decent. Like I said, it's a jack of all trades movie, so it never hits those high highs of the big name studios, but it doesn't look bad either, not by any means. You want to see bad animation? This is bad animation.
Surreal!
I assume a big reason for the film being so cheap in terms of budget is because it had normal animation. It doesn't have the insane, can see reflections in the eyeballs type of stuff. And it made sense to do it like that. Make your money, especially since it already fits the vibe of Garfield. Look at the comic strip. It's not like the art's out of this world in terms of quality. I think the style they went with, it fits the world they're presenting. It's overly cartoonish, extremely faithful to the source material. What more do you want? If they pushed any further into the more hyper-realistic style in terms of the fur and the hair and the shadows or reflections, what have you, it would lose a lot of that cartoonish charm for me. I'm not saying it's perfect, but it looks good enough for what they're doing. And so this brings us to the story. And the story got a lot of flack too, but before we get into that, we'll just have a rundown of the film, shall we? Just to refresh. Garfield follows the eponymous character Garfield, who lives with John, a kindly and lonely man who adopted him after he was seemingly abandoned by his father Vic, and then ransacked an Italian restaurant. And they're joined by Odie, a beagle, and Garfield grows into a slobbish and lazy and greedy, but still loving cat. Until one day, Garfield and Odie are kidnapped by two thuggish dogs and delivered to the villainous Jinx, a Persian cat. And this is all revealed to be a ploy to lure Vic, so she can force the three to perform a milk heist on Lactose Farms, as payback for Vic seemingly abandoning her years before and letting her go to the pound for 5 years. And to accomplish this, the trio enlist the help of Otto, the banished bull mascot of Lactose Farms, who wants their help to free his lady love, Ethel, from the farm's petting zoo. And so they begin to train for their adventure, and along the way, Odie and Otto are able to start to bridge the gap between father and son, revealing that Vic had never really abandoned Garfield. They were starving in the streets, and he realised that Garfield would be far better off with John, who could give him the life he deserves. Until the day of the heist, where everything goes wrong, and Vic betrays Odie and Garfield out of nowhere, leaving Otto to be chased off without Ethel. And so our two heroes are taken to the pound and eventually picked up by John, whilst Vic is in turn betrayed by Jinx, who plans to murder him by throwing him off a train onto spiky rocks. Pretty extra way to go about murdering a nemesis, but I can respect that. And so, for a time, Garfield is deeply sad about what's happened, only for him to remember at the very end something he learned from other cats in the pound. That Vic, even after he'd been adopted by John, would always go to visit Garfield and watch over him from afar, which makes Garfield realise that his dad is in fact a good guy, and that by betraying them, he was allowing the pound to take them back to John and away from Jinx, whilst he faces the music. So it was sort of a self-sacrifice, a way to ensure that his son will continue to live and have a good quality of life. And so the duo reunite with Otto and plan to free Vic, along the way inspiring the two goon dogs with their tale of father-son love, and thus they betray Jinx, and the team can defeat her and trade her to the security of the farm in exchange for Ethel's freedom. Which, honestly, that didn't make much sense to me, but okay. Vic moves in with John and family, they eat him out of house and home, and it's all happy endings from then on out. And I'll be honest, I enjoyed the movie. I thought, whilst the jokes probably didn't all land, like it wasn't rolling on the floor, crying, slapping your knee level of laughter, I did have some chuckles here and there. And usually, I can at least gauge whether kids would enjoy it and find the jokes funny, but I actually got bumped to gold class. I know, right? Mr. Moneybags over here. So I was alone in the gold class Garfield session, except for my girlfriend and some old guy who I didn't hear laugh once. Hello? But I found the jokes funny. Some slapstick, and by some I mean a lot of slapstick, some goofy absurdity, some funny genre parodies, there's dry wit and sarcasm, just a lot of good jokes. Nothing hugely memorable or spectacular, but nothing bad by any means. And also on top of that, the film just has a whole lot of heart, especially when you're looking at the relationship between Garfield and his dad Vic. Once again, it's not an especially deep story, but it's enough to get you invested in the relationship between father and son. Enough to care about what happens to them, to want them to work things out, to feel betrayed when Garfield's betrayed, to feel sad when Vic has to give him up. Honestly, I found it far more wholesome and moving than I was expecting it to. Like I said, it's not an all-time classic. It's not peak Pixar from the Golden Age. It's not Disney Renaissance. Hell, it's not Disney Revival, but it is enjoyable and engaging, and sometimes that's all you need. Although, that's just my opinion. Because a whole heap of critics have levelled a lot of criticism at the film for departing from the source material and having Garfield take part in Mission Impossible-style hijinks, to which I ask, what do these people want from their Garfield movie then? Do they seriously want close to 2 hours of Garfield sitting at home, being a fat ass, eating lots of Italian food, pranking Odie, and trying to avoid John's attempts to get him to diet? Just the idea of watching that. It sounds torturous to me. Honestly, it sounds terrible in every respect. Thank God these people don't get to make decisions. I get people wanting to stay loyal to the source material, but for God's sake, it is a comic strip of loosely connected vignettes. How the hell are you going to turn that into a film for the modern audience without adding a bit of, excitement? Get out of here with that. That film would flop on word of mouth for being boring for children. This film, whilst the critics might have a sook about it, seems to really finally target the key demographic and succeed in capturing their attention and selling tickets. Once again, in my opinion, the critics have egg on their face. They do not understand that kids' films are shock and horror for kids. Come on, bro. These are the same type of idiots that would be moulding when certain things were cut or changed in Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings back in the day, and then go to say, these are objectively bad films and they're failures, despite them being popular with audiences and making massive paydays. Some things never change. So yeah, Garfield, good film, enjoyable, not perfect, but fun. And that's all I was looking for, really. And so with all that being said, these have just been my opinions, and I'd like to hear yours. What did you think of Garfield if you've seen it? Did you like it? Hate it? If you haven't seen it, has this convinced you to give it a chance? I'm curious for your thoughts, so make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know.